And now to the power sector, where the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission on Tuesday denied claims that it approved the increase in electricity tariff by 50%. The commission instead said the rates for the service bands A, B, C, D, and E have been adjusted by 2 naira to 4 naira per kilowatt per hour to reflect the partial impact of inflation and movement in foreign exchange rates. Now, this is said is in compliance with the provision of Electricity Power Sector Reform Act. Nerc says the tariff for customers on service bands D and E remains frozen and subsidized in line with the policy direction of the federal government. Now, joining me to speak more about this is former chairman of Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, Sam Amadi. Good to have you join us, Sam Amadi. Now, there is, as always, there is now controversy over this recent increment. Some people say it's 50%, but Nerc said it's just about 2 naira to 4 naira. But on one hand, the Labour Union is saying that it is still in dialogue with the federal government over the last increment in November. But the discos are saying they are working within the ambits of the law. Help us speak to all of these issues.
Well, I think all the parties, interestingly, are all correct. The increase that Nerc said it is what it is. And if you look at 2 to 4 naira, that's about close to is what seems about 500 or even 100% increase. So, and then the discourse is act of the law, which is right because we have a tariff approval by a regulator, which is Nerc does multi tariff order, which means there's an annual increase or annual review. Sometimes to call it minor review, the major reviews. So minor reviews deals with things like foreign exchange changes, capex change, quantity of gas, cost of gas, and other things. So Nerc, these prices are indexed to these changes. And so whenever there's a review, Nerc signs up. So the Nerc chairman signed up the tariff on December 30th. And then what that means that the discos are authorized by law, which is what tariff is. Tariff is regulation. It's equivalent of a law made by the National Assembly. By virtue of the Electric Power Sector Reform Act, National Assembly has authorized Nerc to periodically make this law, which we call tariff. So the discos are authorized to collect them. The question is it the right time to increase the tariff? And there are two ways to it. One argument is that, look, we're going to continue to have chronic scarcity, collapse of this sector if we don't improve its financing. And the question is, should customers be the ones financing this improvement at the time that this increasing cost of production at the time that improvement is not happening? And so it's like a double whammy. Consumers carry the broken bag, and the ones who are going to pay more, the ones who are going to receive less supply, because even with increase, there's still no prospect of short-term improvement in this sector. So clearly, what is required now is for both policymakers and regulators to go back to the drawing board and focus on how do we ensure sustainable improvement in the sector. And that requires...
So just allow me quickly jump in, Mr. Madi, because you have raised some points. You have talked about the different questions that should be raised within this recent increment. But there's also another question coming from consumers, which is the issue of transparency. They're saying, look, we don't even know how we were put into these bands in the first place. And most times, if we say we're in band C or we're in band D, we don't even get the stipulated hours that we're told we will get in this band.
Absolutely. That's the biggest problem. The biggest problem with this sector is transparency, accountability, and trust. Clearly. And that's, I blame the regulator and the policy managers. Why do I say so? Regulation is incremental. When we're there, we try to ask discos to do tariffs based on consultation with their customers. Now, if it is very transparent, the customers will know exactly what's increasing, why it is increasing, see through. They will then know what they are expecting to see as improvement. This improvement may not happen as projected, but at least they know that what we're going to see 3 hours additional hour of supply for these areas. We're going to see 7-10 hours increment for these areas. And this is the matching tariff increase as Nerc proposes. But what's happening is that everything's on paper. There are no consultations. There's no see-through. Consumers don't know what's happening. And clearly, I think at this point, what we should focus on is improving consumer management in this sector. Obviously, we're going to have a hard time getting the required financing. Take some 2 to 3 years before we see massive improvement in network management and investment in the sector that will drastically reduce price because quantity has improved. And in the short to medium term, we can see increased transparency, effectiveness in regulation, where consumers can know exactly what they're expecting. So the problem is a communicational problem, leadership problem in the sector, it's not financing, because we won't get these trillions of dollars today, tomorrow, or the next day. This sector will improve gradually. It starts with improvement in disco relationship with their customers. So that with greater customer confidence, there will be greater willingness to pay, and over time, we get back to where the cost will start.
All right, a lot to talk about when it comes to the power sector in Nigeria, one that is very complicated and complex, but I'm afraid that we have to leave it there. Former Chairman, Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, Sam Amadi, thanks for talking to TVC News.
Thank you.